One more second. Yeah. All right. How you doing today, Chief? I'm doing okay. Oh, I can hear you. Oh, hold on. That's what we're talking about. All right, can you say something?
Testing.
Yeah.
God bless America.
Oh, uh,
Or
talking about
what's
our
left of it.
what's left of oh, what you got any strong what? I guess I have to ask what in this political environment. I get to ask what specifically are you referring to in this case?
Um, well, it depending on who you ask, the apocalypse may or may not be upon us, and if it's not, we're doing a pretty good job of getting there. Um, big worry, I guess, is that we just ignited a conflagration in the Middle East that is going to spiral out of control, uh, and then cost needless lives of civilians and Americans. So shared, we should all be sharing in
The
uh,
misery.
the misery. Yeah, that
Jeez
comes.
Louise. I need to heal. Uh, did you watch the primary yesterday by any chance?
I had it on the side monitor, but to be honest, I hadn't really been following it too quickly or too closely. Um, but I guess good news, right? I mean, I kind of
Depends,
like
yeah.
Jasmine. I
I
know
really
people
love
have
Jasmine
strong feelings
Crockett.
about her, and I think that's one of the key missing dynamics is people just get jaded because their politicians are jaded, and
Yeah,
then nothing ever changes, right? So,
yeah. So we continue on
but
this
I
little
also like
circus.
uh, her notion of you gotta be a little bit fiery. You gotta fight fire with fire,
No, I agree with that.
instead of just constantly rolling over and saying, "Oh, next election cycle, the people are going to wake up." Well, what makes you so sure of that? Because so far they've been marching along to the Trump trumpet.
No,
But
I agree.
also we're seeing it imploding. But I mean, it's like just as far as if you're using the elections themselves as like milestones. Um, this one, 2026 is, I don't want to say do or die, but uh, it's pretty damn close.
It's gonna be a really stressful election for sure. Ugh. Damn, dude.
What are you playing over there?
I'm playing Half Life right now. Black Mesa.
Nice. Got
Set
doing some Hearthstone.
Oh, nice. Did you
Yeah.
say how is it? I played it when it like came out and then I stopped playing it.
Well, actually, I was playing it for weeks on end originally, and then I got bored of it, and then I discovered the wild mechanic where
Format?
yeah, format, and you can use like all the old cards, and then it was just like, okay, well,
Okay.
you just dragged me right back in.
Yeah.
So it's
Nice.
uh it's fun in that way. But I probably, I mean, I'll probably find a new game hopefully soon, because I mean it's awfully repetitive at the same time.
Sure.
But
Some people are playing Slay the Spire. That's fun. I did have some thoughts to share about the Texas primary. So I guess I had a few thoughts. I didn't think. I thought the results were a bit middling. They weren't like a I don't think anybody had like a truly a good or like amazing or terrible showing. Um, you had one kind of good point of good news for Dems is that the primary in Texas is officially over. Jasmine Crockett conceded. Tallarico got over 50%, which is good for them because now we have. I mean, it's just a good thing to have because now we can focus the energy on the general. Whereas the Republican Party, they're going to be still complaining and moaning about, they're still going to be having a primary fight for at least another couple of
Who is
months
there?
before
Who's running off or what have you?
So it's between the incumbent, which is John Cornyn, who is a more moderate individual, and it's against a MAGA Republican by the name of Ken Paxton is their guy.
Mm.
Paxton is like very
Wow.
MAGA, and he hugs Donald Trump very closely. So
It could be good for us, right? Because Trump is going down. Hopefully, right? Like the
it's
MAGA
an
movement
interesting
is kind
question. He's insanely unpopular amongst Dems, but he's actually shockingly popular amongst Republicans still. You would think that he wouldn't be because of you know, blowing up Iran, but Iran is actually all the polling shows that most Republicans are actually supportive of war with Iran. It appears, which is not necessarily what I
and the
was
Senate
expecting.
just blocked the War
Exactly.
Powers resolution.
Exactly. So he's got a significant amount of sway in the party, um, despite like what people may kind of hope or expect. That's kind of my thought. He's just kind of popular. Dan Crenshaw, I don't know if you heard about what happened to him, but Dan Crenshaw lost his re-election bid. He's famously he's known for having his eye patch, but he was more hawkish on Ukraine than most Republicans.
Wow.
And he lost also because he had the audacity to say 2020 wasn't stolen. I know, right? Unbelievable.
That.
Liar. I'm kidding. So, because he's only a, butt licker for MAGA 20% of the time, wasn't enough. And thus, he lost re-election to a true MAGA patriot, as they would call it, I guess, is one way to put it. It's been a little bit frustrating. And it just kind of
how
shows...
many more times? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it just shows how much influence he still has to this day, Trump.
Mm.
What were you going to
Well,
ask?
Well, Tillis, right? That's the kind of like the other way to do it as the because Tillis, North Carolina,
Yeah, he's done.
was he's done, right? He's retiring,
He's retiring.
and but he came out and he pretty much lambasted, I think is the word, Noam. I mean, among other people, right? Like, so he's peeling away from MAGA. Oh, he's leaving the party, or he's retiring. He's leaving the
Yeah.
Senate, kind of in protest.
It's
Of
not
the,
protest. He's unelectable now
Mm.
because he's not able to get Trump's will done.
But he left. It's not because of his being ineffectual. It's because he didn't want to do it, right? Like,
I mean,
he's,
if you can't get what Trump wants done, then you get tossed from the party. Is kind of how it goes.
oh, jeez. I mean, that's. How much do you think the Epstein files are the linchpin to all of this, and the fact that Trump is able to maintain power? Do you think like the GOP has some of the Epstein files, or they're like the highest like rank and file are in it, and so they're just like going along with his will, or like what's the big
Like, why isn't he
why does
releasing
he
the
have so
Epstein
much
files?
gravity?
Why does he have
Say?
gravity, or what
Sorry?
is the question? There's two different questions. Why is he not? Why is he not taking the Epstein file? Why is he not releasing the Epstein files, or why is it not like? Why is it not
Why
like?
is it not more of a problem for the GOP. Like, why are they just like blindly marching along with him if they don't have anything, like either in the files or to gain otherwise? Because their reputations are going to be in shadows. Hopefully, like once Trump finally, if he does get held accountable.
I'd say it's mostly. I think that the average GOP voter just like is not like online like we are. I just think that they either think that like the average voter is just like they're just not like they're just stuck kind of an algorithm where they don't think it's that big of a deal, or they think it's worth it, or Trump is still like too good and too cool to be like, is it's a good question, but I think that people are just I just don't think they care.
Okay, but that's actually so I hate to say like that's good, but like in a silver lining type aspect, I think a lot of, I mean, it's populism, right? So a lot of the people that normally wouldn't vote, or they've tuned out politics altogether, it doesn't affect them. They're against the man. They think their vote's wasted anyway, so they don't. So they normally don't vote. And then Trump comes along.
Yeah.
He stews the racism. He starts like exciting their little lizard brains. So I think it's like once Trump is done, like I'm speaking optimistically and all that, but once Trump is done, and we tried this big populist
Yeah.
experiment, we saw it like launch America into fascism, scatter our allies all over the place. Like, okay, so the next big, fat pedo fascist that comes along, I my hope is that we'll have a prime example to look back on. Say, I mean, yeah, it is. I have no problem calling, making references to Trump being Hitler. Like he is a degree of Hitler. Like he people are missing. Like there are missing people that got sent to camps, and their families probably missing them and don't know where they are. Like he's a wannabe Hitler. Like that's the thing. Like he's a wannabe Hitler.
It's even worse. I'm kidding.
Even worse. Well,
Hello.
How's it
Hey, hey.
going? We were talking
I'm
about just now. We were talking about
like Trump being
Trump.
Hitler.
Basically, I wanted to get your take on what you thought about the what is it called? The
I
last
was
the
never a
primaries.
fan of illusion or pre.
Oh, the Texas primaries?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Texas Senate race, definitely the step in the right direction, 100%. I have a feeling if Trump's smart, we're going to see Cornyn winning the runoff via an endorsement. Though I'd like to see them fight for a bit longer, personally. But when it came to Tallarico versus Crockett, we had the clear progressive, in my opinion, Tallarico come out on top. Larger, more anti-establishment, anti-corruption candidate. Also one who just simply was driving out votes from more groups, both the base supporters, but also independents and moderates and stuff. He's just wildly popular. And he was also doing so on a policy and economics-based position instead of a social politics-based position, which I think is very good. We also saw some pretty close primary seats, I believe, in North Carolina and Texas with some anti-establishment progressives, which I thought was a good sign. Unfortunately, a few of them ended up losing, which I was a little disappointed by. We have Collier in there still, which is a definite disappointment. But, like, this is a really good direction.
Who were the sorry? Who say that again? The last part. The who won that you didn't like?
The guy who got charged for corruption, pardoned by Trump.
Oh.
Collier, he promised he'd be a Republican, and then he was like, psych, I'm pardoned, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. What about that guy?
I
Isn't
was
there that
surprised.
individual who won? There's a person who won that. It's the guy who he his person
Cooper?
lit themselves on fire or something. That guy got
Oh.
reelected, right? Or won the primary, right?
I don't know. I
You
know
know what I'm talking
iPatchman lost. And I read an article, and the writer was having fun with that.
Ugh. I heard that. I'm a little bit. One of the things I'm kind of concerned about when it comes to the Texas primary is it was very it was more split than ideal. You know what I mean? Like Tallarico won, which is okay, but he won by just a there was a big division in the party between who to vote for. Like you had the African American community come out in force for Crockett, and then you had a lot of other communities. I think it was basically Mamdani's coalition of young people, white people, Hispanics, and Asians. I think is that demographic.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering if I'm a little concerned that what you like to see, obviously, is you like to see generally someone winning just outright with a huge percentage of a crushing victory. And it was a very split vote, and so that was a little bit not ideal.
I would also like to see that in the primaries. However, that's simply not going to happen,
Right.
for a variety of reasons, especially due to just establishment resistance in the Democratic Party. Right. And foreign or maybe corporate interference. I'll say corporate interference. Don't want to
Well, wait.
be
You think
defaming per se.
Hold on there. Are you saying that in your assessment that the reason? Hey, David. Are you saying that in your assessment that the reason that there was so split between them was Crockett's support was AstroTurf? Because I don't really agree with that.
No, more so just Crockett fits into that category of being more establishment and being more friendly with corporations, in my opinion. And whenever we do start to see progressive politicians come along, typically these types of establishment folks will come out of the woodwork to challenge those things. Even though Crockett said that she wasn't going to run for Senate until last minute. And I think they're especially so black voters are typically more within the Democratic Party, more conservative or establishment, typically. And when you had an establishment Crockett go out there and run on a identity politics based platform that was also focused a bit on social issues as well, I feel like that was kind of going to naturally divide the vote and the Democratic Party in Texas to a certain degree. And she's also just a well-known candidate too. She's been very loud, she's there all the time, compared to Tallarico, who was a bit new. And I think if we would have given Tallarico a few more months, he would have made even more headways. It kind of reminds me a bit of Mamdani, but Mamdani was more way more progressive and socialist, and he was running against someone who was incredibly unpopular, and he got by I think roughly the same margins as Tallarico did in New York.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, David, I got a question for you. I wanted to ask you and Josh this, and then I'll have I'll get a response from other Josh.
Nothing at all happened in the last week.
No. I have a different question, not related to Iran. I want to get to Iran in just 5 minutes. I have a question for you about populism, because Tallarico, I'm curious if you had a strong feeling about the Texas primary, because I've noticed that Tallarico is he's got the populist bona fides where he talks about how it's actually I should say the elites, but the 1%ers who are doing this, that, or the other. And that's not generally how, like, liberals, we don't generally like that. But then, like, Tallarico is, like, moderate. Did you have strong feelings on people who use, like, populist rhetoric in this way?
I mean, I don't really like it. Tallarico's he's an odd duck. He really kind of cuts across all the political spectrum in some ways. And he can actually talk. He can talk well to liberal Democrats, mainstream Democrats, progressive Democrats. He can even talk well with conservative Republicans, right? He's almost an everyman in many ways, and I think that's why we've really seen kind of his star rising here. Is that he does talk so well to such a broad segment of the population. His Colbert interview, I think, really kind of demonstrated that.
Yeah.
That was not, a far left interview. That was not a middle of the road interview. That really, it kind of hit all the points, I felt. So, he's one to watch out for in politics. I think he's going to do quite well here. Now, Texas, that's still a challenging environment, so it doesn't mean he's going to win. But I think if any Democrat candidate can pull off the Senate race in Texas, Tallarico's the best bet.
Okay. I know you wanted to talk about Iran, David, so we can jump into it if you want. Yeah, it's been kind of a chaotic. Decisions were made. We'll put it that way. Decisions have been made. Were made. So yeah, it's
Not
only been the one thing I'm going to say.
Not by the right people.
True. Definitely true. The one thing, and I know I do want you to talk about the constitutionality of it all, specifically that it's not. But one thing that I just thought was one thing I couldn't stand was like Donald Trump basically started off by going like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do this. It's gonna be like 1 week," and then T-Tac said like could go up to 8 weeks as I'm feeling, and then like the Pentagon's like, "We're thinking about September," and I'm like, "Oh, this is not what I'm
Now,
not ideal."
A word on that: when it comes to the Pentagon, by procedure, they have to give the worst case estimate.
Okay.
They don't give an average. They work from worst case scenarios.
Oh, good.
So now, when the Pentagon says September, that is their current worst case scenario for whatever the objective is in Iran.
Whatever the objective is.
Whatever the objective is.
Any idea what the objective is, or are we just?
I mean, we've had several announced, right? It was, we heard about the nuclear program, which Donald Trump, last time I was here on the show, was just saying he was so successful in annihilating, right? So what is the real objective? I don't think we've heard it yet. And I'm not, and I think there might be really competing objectives here, which is not an uncommon thing. Right. The military may want to support something for some reason, the CIA for another, and the president entirely different one. I'm sure Trump is eager for anything that changes the topic from the Epstein files. So if the CIA or the Pentagon comes to him and says we need to attack Iran, he's all for it, right?
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to say it's probably not the Pentagon starting that. I mean, maybe like Pete Hegseth, but like Chief of Staff, for example, they all got purged and put in by loyalists. They're not going to really be like the ones trying to lead a drumbeat, right? And historically beforehand, they were more anti-war out of anyone in the government.
Pete Hegseth is the head of the Pentagon now, and he has gotten rid of a lot of the smarter people there. Unfortunately. So
they didn't know how to party well with all his alcohol.
Before and things have certainly been going downhill over the years, in my opinion, in terms of kind of quality at the top. I don't want to pretend that everything was perfect under Biden either. I think that there were way too many politically driven decisions at the Pentagon, which should be much more professionally run. And, definitely that was happening during Trump's first term as well. Though Matisse was pretty good. Don't have to agree with him, but he was very professional and knew what he was doing. Versus now we have a lot more people who are there for, Pete Hegseth, the warrior ethos. We're all going to be warriors. And as I've been saying before, this is totally wrong-headed. This has gotten us into a conflict where the people who should be in charge should be the military geeks, the ones who talk about logistics, because logistics is what wins and loses wars, not warrior ethos or feeling that your guys aren't hoorah enough. The military
reminds
is
me of
definitely
the,
the place for that bravado and that feeling strong, but not at the top. We need cooler heads. We need deep thinkers at the top, and Pete Hegseth does not deliver that.
No, not at all. He's the exact opposite, but he's loyalty, and that's all that's important to Donald.
Yep. Yeah. So, I don't think we've heard the real reason from Iran. I do think that there was something urgent. I think the case really needs to be made to the public and to Congress. That's the way constitutionally it's designed to work. Say that constitutionally. And Congress has passed laws somewhat to restrict the lawlessness of presidents before, in theory. I mean, that's what the War Powers Act is supposed to do, tell the president when he can and cannot initiate a conflict. And that was not the case here. And then we also have some
Have you considered that it's not a war, though?
So, a formal declaration of war is not the only situation in which hostilities can be waged. That has never been the case in U.S. history, actually. There is a formal declaration of war. What we usually use in the war that is not a formal war is a authorization for use of military force. So, for instance, we had one in 2001, and that sent us to war in Afghanistan, and it's an open-ended authorization to chase down Al-Qaeda anywhere. Al-Qaeda is not in Iran, but, that also sent us into Syria and was a flimsy excuse for Libya and other places. I'm really against the AUMF because it ends up being such a blank check for these conflicts. And then we had another AUMF in 2002 for Iraq, which is right next door to Iran. And we've never left. We still have military presence there that was used. And, there's a lot of people who disagree, and they have some strong and I think valid reasons. But I think we should not have kept such a heavy presence in the Middle East. And that is what has led to the capability to have this war without taking it to Congress to fully authorize everything and build up beforehand. Showing off my age here a little bit, but in the 90s, we had Operation Desert Storm.
Yeah.
Right? That was not an overnight thing.
My dad fought in that.
Bush could not just wage an invasion. We didn't have bases in the Middle East from which to launch them from. So he went and got authorization from Congress. He worked and he built up agreements between all the nations of the Middle East, either to support the U.S. or to stay neutral. And then we went in after 6 months of preparation. There was none of this overnight flipping a switch. And as we
got
can see
mobilized
now,
really quickly. That was shocking how fast it elevated or escalated.
Well, he was able to put everything in place because everything was already set up
Yeah.
and agreed to by Congress prior, right? Everything except, the strike authorization, but we handed over the keys. And that's one of the lessons we have to learn.
Are you saying we shouldn't have all these bases, or what is the extent?
We
Because
should
I know we have
not.
bases
No,
everywhere.
We actually should not have all these bases there in the Middle East. We should not have half the number of bases we do around the world. We should still have some. I'm not an isolationist. I don't think that the U.S. should only be in its borders. We should have bases where they're welcome. They should not be forced on any nation, and it should be of benefit to us and them. And the bases should not be of such a size that any president feels that they can just start a war whenever they want it, right? The bases should be enough to deter wars from starting, not enough to launch them. An example of that would be, we have a Marine base in South Korea. Absolutely not enough force to take on North Korea or China or to start anything, but it's enough to make the North Koreans think twice about starting anything because, it's automatically bringing in the Americans, right, if they attack South Korea. So it keeps the peace. And that's the type of basing arrangement which I think is good. Bases that are just enough to keep the peace and not enough that any president can give an order for them to march into another nation and, expect a level of success. They should have to go to Congress for that. That's the way the Constitution was set up and intended. And Congress has, it's, not this Congress in particular or the previous one. Over the decades, they've really given the president too much. The office of the president, right? I'm talking about the balance of powers between the three areas of government.
Is that just because of the
As
convenience of it
liberals,
all?
we need to dial that back. Initiating conflict needs to be a very deliberated process.
Deeply. I can't believe we were. It is just kind of
And-
bananas that we went straight into that. We're at war without Congress is just completely abdicating its duty, just fully.
I wouldn't
Like,
even
if they-
say that. They never had a chance. Trump didn't take this to them beforehand, right? They were not notified in advance.
But they could be doing something right now. No, they could be.
They could be, but Congress is too split. See, that's the thing. There's not enough to stop Trump, but there's also not enough to authorize him, right? So it's the fact that everything was in place beforehand that allowed him to do this. If he had to go and get congressional authorization, then with what we know right now, he wouldn't have it. Nothing would have started. But everything was already put in place by Congress, over decades that any president could have done this. And then, Trump was elected. And I think most voters regret that. They have buyer's remorse. But we have to wait until this November to really start changing that.
I unfortunately don't agree. From what I can tell, Trump is actually very popular amongst his base still. It looks like he still has the highest level of trust. He's of his own base. Like, obviously, if you throw in the Democrats' independents, he's doing really poorly. But if you're only looking at MAGA, he'd win re-election in the blink of an eye.
Well, that's the thing, is I think that there is a solid 30% of the country which will be behind the president no matter what he does.
Yep. Yeah. Even if, there's videos that come out of the Epstein files that show him raping kids, they'll make excuses. And we're
Yeah.
already seeing all kinds of excuses. But that's the 30%. I'm talking about, the moderate Republicans and the independents that any Republican needs to get elected on a national scale, right? You cannot get elected to president with just a party line vote. You have to have independents. And those independents, by the polls, clearly regret, having voted for Trump.
I think a better way to phrase it is you need nonpartisans, because typically we take independents to mean middle of the road, they flip flop, etc. And yeah, sure, that's true. However, I think you also need a size of. I think good candidates need to be able to bring out a sizable amount of cynical people who just have not voted before or traditionally do not vote. And I think we see that in some candidates such as Mamdani or Sanders, et cetera, who are able to do that to folks.
I disagree with those examples.
They did bring
I
out
think-
non-voters.
Yeah, they
and
brought out
got them
non-voters.
voting, and they did a good job of it, and it won them. It won them pretty well. I mean, Sanders did lose the primary back in 2016, 2020.
But
But it worked out
nothing
for them.
about New York City represents mainstream America. It is not an average
it's-
slice of the American populace.
It's a general idea. I'm not saying that we need folks like Mamdani running for president, but what I am saying is that the nonpartisan voters out there aren't just middle of the road folks. It's folks who've also just completely given up hope on being engaged politically and having political engagement.
I agree with that. Nonpartisan, independence, the usual wording. But just to put it in more concrete demographic terms, majority of voters do not identify with the Republican or Democrat parties, right?
Yep.
That is something that has changed within about the last 15 years and is different from the previous century. So identification with the two parties, with any party, is the lowest it has ever been. People don't identify with third parties either. And they still periodically vote. However, that said, many of these people who consider themselves political independents do identify as liberal or conservative. So
That is,
they have a leaning.
Yeah.
I actually, something really interesting learned from my political parties and elections class was that some of the most partisan voters that are out there are those who like to say that they're independents, but they lean.
Yep.
When you look at surveys and such, and it's just like, yeah, we got those stereotypes about independence for a reason.
Yes. And, one of the things about Trump, those conservative independents, they tend to be Bush-Reagan conservatives. They have been very turned off by what MAGA has done. Mostly not enough to vote Democrat yet, but at least enough not to vote for MAGA in this next round.
Yeah.
Yes, and I do agree with that. I do have to say that I unfortunately I feel that they are increasingly dying out population of conservative though. Maybe you disagree. I don't have any official polling, for example, but I feel like at least when I was younger, I heard more of that traditional conservatism from individuals, and it felt more from amongst individuals locally, at least like in Iowa, for example.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's as true or not. I know that there is definitely a lot of outside bot-driven propaganda that wants us to feel that way, for sure.
Yeah. For sure.
If you look at like the Twitter space and so on, that the bots are trying to make you believe that conservatives just up and vanished overnight, which is not the case, right? Now, definitely, they're not anything close to the voting majority in the Republican Party now. Maybe they're independents and still around. Maybe they are dying off. But yeah, there is no data, and we really, should be out there getting that data.
Yeah, I do generally agree with that. I am really curious to see how traditional branding of conservative Republican voters will vote in the Senate race in Texas this upcoming year, especially if it's like Cornyn or Paxton.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is interesting to watch. But I think whether the conservatives are still out there as independents or not, I think MAGA has firmly taken over the Republican Party.
Oh,
And
100%.
I don't see that turning around. The only way it even has a chance is if MAGA is so thoroughly beaten in the next two election cycles that there's no chance for them to come back. And the Republican Party has to embrace a different direction. That's the only way I see conservatives really having a chance to come back out of the wilderness now. I think, they have the opportunity to make a new home in the Democratic Party, though some will be yelling and screaming at that.
Oh, 100%.
It's very much true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I think that if the Democratic Party moves more conservative, things in the U.S. are going to get a lot worse over the next 12 years, and we're only going to see.
When you say conservative, you mean like moderate or conservative? There's a difference.
I think it's pretty similar. Actually, I think it's pretty similar.
Well, I have
especially because we've seen a lot of these Reagan era pro-business economic policies, traditional, in my opinion, anti-liberal in the classical sense, social policies and values come into place, and they failed. And I think we're seeing the decay of that, and I think we're seeing the economic impact on society. If we keep getting more of that, I think we're going to keep having far greater issues in the future, and we're going to have more cynical voters who will believe less in democracy and believe less in liberalism, and we're going to get more violence. And that's my thoughts, I guess.
I know some people are worried that if the Democrat tent is open to include conservatives, that they'll take over the party, but I don't think that's even possible.
I'm not saying
I think there'll just be a bigger tent.
Yes, I'm just arguing that recently there was a large group of new Democrat leaders met, and they made some public announcements and stuff, and they were arguing that the only way for the Democratic Party to win the midterms and the future elections was to become more conservative and to move towards neoliberal Clintonism again. And that's what my concern is about. Because I'm all good for bringing in conservatives who want to have stronger communities, just better governance. Because there's a difference between better policy and ideology versus better governance, right? I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
We may disagree with Mamdani's ideologies, but he's so far doing a really good job governing. I think you could say the same about different conservative mayors around the country and such as well.
So what would you define as if conservative mayors?
Do not.
I was just going to say, if conservative mayors are doing well, what is specifically you're looking at? I feel like in this case you're just saying you're kind of looking for that populist sort of I don't know if the word of angst is the right word, but populist posturing that you're looking for, people who say things are normal or okay is not. You're looking for something away from
more,
that.
in my opinion, left-wing economic policy, specifically more akin to social democracy or social liberalism or FDR style. We need things like that, and we also need that economic power that is held by, I'm just going to say, the rich and the elite to be pushed out of our political system through whatever means necessary. Because I think we're currently seeing a looting of the nation currently by our administration, but we've been seeing it for longer by large segments of our society.
By good governance, I take it to mean is that, governing efficiently, governing honestly, getting rid of corruption from the system, which is a problem that we've always had across all political spectrums, right? So let's not pretend otherwise. You don't stand for anything with corruption, right? This is something that has always bothered me about any ideologues who refuse to clean house of the corrupt. When you allow the corrupt people to govern, you stand for nothing. And also the other part of good governance is just doing so efficiently, right? And this is where local governance usually works better than anything out of DC, because local government can usually allocate resources more effectively, right? They may not be able to obtain them as well. This is why we often have a working model where the federal government has paid many of the states to do things. But it works because states can allocate those funds more specifically tailored to their local areas.
And to a certain degree, I can agree with that. Of course, it's all different factors in different regions and stuff. But generally, I would agree with that. But yeah, that said, my just biggest concern is if we continue to introduce more of the old neoconservative and neoliberal economic policies, we're going to see, I think those naturally lead to corruption. That's just kind of my opinion. That's why I think there needs to be absolutely no going back to the neoliberal and neoconservatism of the 70s through 90s, early 2000s.
We had a lot of economic prosperity in the 80s and 90s, so it wasn't all bad. But to some amount, I do agree with you. The 70s economically were pretty bad. So just saying, we need to have a closer analysis at what works and what doesn't work.
I mean, you can also attribute things to just specific environmental factors and such. However, I have yet to see a nation in the long term utilize neoliberal or neoconservative economics and have long-term success or growth compared to countries that have definitely moved more towards the mixed economy, utilizing some socialistic or whatever you want to call policies.
You're based on the Nordic.
Specifically, yeah, or well, sure, your Nordic European model. I mean, they have all sorts of different things. All the countries are a little different, and I'm not saying we need a planned economy or anything, but what I am saying is that the idea of like all these different tax breaks and of all of these divestitures from public services and of the private mass privatizing of basic essential services and stuff, it doesn't work.
To be more precise, socialism is when things are planned by the government. And I think what you're referring to is more social democracy, when the government provides services, not necessarily planning for what people do.
I have to disagree with your definition of socialism there.
Okay.
Because I would argue that socialism is a very broad net of, at least the way it's currently treated in reality amongst different organizations or those who identify as socialists, is treated as a broad net to categorize basically an economy that is capitalized by working class and not by anyone with large amounts of capital, whether that's money or the actual resources and stuff. I gotta do something real quick, but yeah. I'm generally against planned economies and such, to a certain.
I mean, here I'm using the basic dictionary definition of socialism: any of various economic and political theories or movements advocating collective or governmental ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. Right. So if you don't think that government should control the economy, then you're by that definition not a socialist, right?
It depends on the different Nordic model that are in modern use, though. I mean, just to be fair, like, you could call someone a Democrat back in the 1800s, and that's, people have different definitions for these things, and what may be in a book may not be what's conventionally used, especially amongst actual organizations in the United States.
Yep. Oh, that's why I'm reading my definition, right? Because I am an engineer. I'm very textbook about these things. And I do recognize that a lot of people have a different definition of socialism. For instance, I would not call the Nordic countries at all socialist. And I know that a lot of people point to them and say, well, like Sweden, they're socialist. but they're not, because they don't control the economy. They're not telling businesses what to do. Their businesses are not closely regulated. What they mean by the Nordic model is that they have a lot of social programs, right? The government taxes and uses that money to help people, which is, I wouldn't necessarily do it the Nordic way, but I do agree with the philosophy.
Can you say that last part again? You do or don't agree with Nordic philosophy?
I agree with the philosophy. I don't agree necessarily with some of the ways they've implemented it or their priorities.
Gotcha. You're more of like a UBI guy, if I recall. I don't want to misremember.
I do support specifically the negative income tax, UBI. Yep. Universal Basic Income.
Nice.
Yo, what's up?
No. There's a fifth person here. Who's this?
I do not support any just any form of universal basic income. I've seen some people pushing some others around. Of course, when Andrew Yang was talking about it a lot of people were like, "Yay, UBI."
Oh, hey, Rob.
But it has to be a system that works mathematically.
Makes sense. We were talking. We're gonna get out of philosophy. I think it's a little intense. We were talking about the Texas. We were talking about Texas, and then we were talking about. What else were we talking about?
We started talking about Iran.
We're talking about Iran. Do you have any strong feelings on either of those things?
What was the final spread on Texas? Let's see.
Whatever Emerson College put out for their poll, it was like almost 100% dead on.
There were some polls that actually had Crockett up, but they were obviously wrong.
Yeah, I'm just referring to Emerson College. They're really, really scarily accurate.
Yeah, people keep calling it Memerson College.
That was a brutal L for Kamala Harris to jump in at the last second
Yeah.
and just not.
So there's
Talarico
going on in the
on my
world.
6. Talarico on my 6.
Talarico
I,
won by
I,
6.
I'm gonna be honest. Outside of just wanting to maintain the establishment or being opposed to his more populist policies, I don't get Harris's thinking with this. What?
I mean-
How? If
It's got to be a loyalty thing because Talarico clearly had all the momentum going in to this week. And then the Colbert cancellation thing, it really
gave him
felt
lot
like
of
a jump.
energy.
You got 10x the views that it would have if they just let it air.
Yeah.
And also Colbert is also a Southern Christian guy, so it was just perfect, for a great conversation for Talarico to stand out.
No, it was a pretty good one. I'm just did you guys notice there's a lot of tension? I wasn't expecting. There's a lot of people these days who are a lot of racial politics I saw made its way into this election. I wasn't expecting that, but it did happen. Anyone? I don't know if we have any strong thoughts on that, but
well, I'm gonna share kind of my perspective on something that I kind of talked about before with the idea of identity politics, because I feel like I've kind of started seeing this in my local 2nd district in Iowa, where there's a certain candidate who's been popping up, and they gave a pitch at a local meeting I was at for why we should vote for them in the primary, right? And never once did they talk about policy. Never once did they talk about what they were going to actually really do in concrete details. Never once did they talk about an ideology. What they always talked about was like
Themselves?
themselves. What qualities about themselves made them super cool and better than like the government, and why the president sucked, and how she had this really cool story, and how we're all gonna be so happy if we help her do what she wants. And I think that's what we see amongst a lot of establishment Democrats, and I think it's specifically what we saw with Jasmine Crockett. Because above all, every time I ever heard her speak, it was primarily about herself and how others needed to help her do what she wanted. And when you're running off of identity politics, you're going to find the largest things that connect you to the largest people while not actually engaging in any of the more deeper intellectual or issue-based, I guess, parts of it. And for her, that was her African American heritage that she could easily tap into. I mean, Talarico kind of does this with his faith to a certain degree, but it's in addition to the issues and the ideology and the policy and the specifics, details, right? Which makes it fine in my book. But when she started losing, that's the one thing she had to play into. And I find it really interesting how when polls started coming out showing that she would likely lose, all of these racial allegations started flying about that had very little to no evidence.
Yeah, I think we gotta. This has to be like the last chapter of identity politics stuff between the Trump reelection and then this, where a less experienced candidate in Talarico just ascended to the Senate because he has a great message that's right for Texas and culturally a fit for the state.
Did you feel, Rob? Did you like his populisty messaging, or did you feel like that was like a little bit too much?
I mean, I just think running a actual Christian dude, choir boy type in Texas makes a lot of sense. Like, regardless of where you are economically, like that culture fit just makes sense. And you know, obviously that's not for me, but for Texas.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, and I do think the Rage Against the Billionaires is a legitimate gripe. Like, that's not just playing populist like politics. Like, it's an actual problem. But these big tech guys, like, it's a real problem.
I mean, yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, you look at all these tech companies right now with AI, with the security systems they're coming out with.
Yeah.
I mean, they're literally building the framework for a surveillance state. They are actively, you know, abusing and manipulating the population for money in every way, shape, and form. Social media is one of the clearest ways of this with algorithms, for example. We see the rise of gambling. It's psychological
the gambling is
abuse
insane,
to
man.
make a profit.
It blows my mind that like
look at-
nowadays we have people like we have. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but CNN is like now talking about like gambling odds on their like. I'm just like, what? We've got like this culture is not going the direction I think it should.
And the last thing I want to say real quick is also just look at the massive tax rates we give to them. Look at the massive lack of social welfare that we then attribute to our deficit as we expand it in their name. And just also all the waste of the military-industrial complex as well. Because, like, I get it, you know, we do want to have a military, we do need to fund it and stuff, but also we often seem to waste a lot of it too, potentially on purpose. I feel so. You look at all these things, and any person's going to get absolutely pissed off, especially looking at worker rights and stuff, unions, etc.
I just wish we could change some of the discourse around it, because it's not the fact that these people are just rich. It's not because, you know, how many zeros they got at the end of their bank account. It's because of the way they're doing it, right? It's because of this this extortionary behavior, working with the government. Yeah, rent seeking, trying to, you know, collude with government officials so that there's no possible competition. You know, forcing people, you know, forcing the government basically like, oh, you're just going to cut us a sweetheart deal and you're going to have our product and that's it. And you know, or all this stuff that Christy Noam just got interviewed about, where she was cutting special deals with friends and family, right? Multi-million-dollar contracts. I mean, the one that finally got her today was that she said that Trump knew that she cut, I think it was $230 million commercial contract, which went to friends and family. And this is how we, when we complain about billionaires, we're talking about this, I don't know what the better word is for them. We'll use rent-seeking class, right? I don't want to make that sound bad of all landlords, because some of them are good, right? Some of them actually care about their properties and are really trying to make a mutually beneficial arrangement. But they're trying to force people in a situation where you can only rent. You can never be a buyer like they were.
Yes, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing people who are so angry and so populist are moving towards, I'll say, vaguely socialistic, social democracy, if you want to say, ideas, or just like right-wing populism.
I would even just say, I would just say populism, just because like you get, there's some things MAGA proposes that I wouldn't even call socialist. They're just authoritarian or not free marketing.
Yeah.
MAGA is incredibly socialist. They just don't realize it.
Well, they claim to be, but when they actually implement their policies, for the most part, it's akin to it's all kind of similar, because it ends up kind of going towards the government because the rich people get in government and then they use that to get rich. But like it's like a vaguely like oligarchic mess with government nationalism demanding certain things. Compared
That's what
to
nationalist socialism always was. I mean,
I'll get into the I won't get into the specific disagreements over the ideology and such and the differences between those, but I think that a lot of people also believe now that to get into those positions of wealth, you kind of have to believe in or firmly utilize those strategies. I doubt that there is a single billionaire in the United States who was not either given that money or is not already like that, and that is how they got their money.
Well, I can use one example. Jeff Bezos wasn't always a billionaire, right? He was a child of a single mother and really did work his way up. And Amazon, its original success story was really just by providing people what they wanted effectively. But once he became a millionaire, the way he moved up into the billionaire class was by cutting special sweetheart deals with the government, right? Like this stupid
that's
Melania
exactly
movie.
what I said. The only way for them to get that high up is to do evil and immoral acts that go against the greater good, against society.
But it wasn't always that way, right? So he's not someone who started out wealthy and became more wealthy like Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump was basically he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and thanks to government bailouts, he managed to keep it every time he went bankrupt because he had no business sense. Jeff Bezos was a really good business idea, and he made it work, and he provided people what they wanted. And then he found kind of a ceiling, and he joined the rest of them by engaging in the same sort of corruption, right? By doing favors to the president in exchange for a favor that makes them wealthier or allowed them to stay among the super wealthy. Just not principled at all. I think that's always kind of the problem, is that, the system that allows you to get wealthy, which if you don't use the government to make some kind of deal, will just as quickly tear you apart. Because that's the way a free market works. You've got to keep providing that value to your customers, or you can be poor just as quickly as you became rich. And that's scary. And so people buy a government safety net by cutting the consumer out of the choices, right?
It's been nice talking to you all, but I have a few things I have to deal with and get done. So good seeing y'all.
Yeah, nice talking to you. So, I don't think we've actually touched Iran truly. We haven't really like
No.
discussed it. Well, all you did was you mentioned that it was not something you viewed as constitutional. The real hot take.
Yeah, but Congress isn't going to do anything about that, unfortunately. Not right now. In the future, we've got to make them clean it up.
How do you feel about? You're probably going to say you don't like it, but Elisa Slotkin actually spoke about how we're in this mess, and she might authorize some sort of finances. You know, because we're in this mess, and we have to figure out a way out of it optimally. I feel like I understand, but I feel like it's rewarding. Like, you know, like as president, if I want to invade someone, I'll just be like, all right, well.
It might be, but you know what I think most Democrats want right now is they want a rewind button. Like, oh, I don't want to be at war. Well, we are at war, right? There is no rewind button. Okay, we are in a state of war. Iran does not want peace. They want to make this war even bigger, right?
Oh, really?
Today, a Shahed drone attacked Azerbaijan to the north. We have nothing in that direction. They are not an ally of the U.S. There are no military bases at all to the north of Iran. This is just an attempt to widen the conflict. It's kind of a free-for-all. I mean, they had a drone attack a UK military base in Cyprus, right? They tried to launch an attack at Turkey that was intercepted.
Why are they trying to expand this war?
What?
Why are they trying to expand the war?
This has always kind of been an Iranian thing that they are trying to be the leaders of a holy war among Islam, right? So Iran is a theocracy, is a theocratic republic, and it is led by a bunch of clerics who are quite the minority among Islam. So this is about convincing other Muslims to their beliefs, right? We are the jihadists. We are the ones taking the fight to the great Satan. We're not afraid. We're willing to fight anybody, and they're hoping to rally more Muslims to their banner. And in a few places, it works. That's how they got the alliance of Hezbollah and the Houthis and these other terrorist groups. But of course, they're completely alienating all the governments around the world, other than a few. Which the irony is that those governments they have close relations with are not Islamic at all. Today, Iranian government said that the only nation they will allow to freely transit the strait is communist China, right? Because of their love of Islam and religious liberty.
Yeah, true. Not even Russia?
Not even Russia. In fact, it probably wasn't intentional, but they already hit a Russian tanker.
That's my. So why is it just because? Oh, just go for it.
Oh well, I was gonna just about the Iran thing before we all move on, but it looks like I guess the U.S. Navy or the U.S. submarine like completely blew up an Iranian vessel out of the blue after inviting it to like to some kind of like peace talks or some kind of engagement of goodwill, and then when the ship arrived at the destination, it was just annihilated without warning by a U.S. submarine.
I've heard nothing about these peace talks or anything like that. That frankly sounds like Iranian propaganda, a lot of which is flying around and is specifically targeted to the confirmation biases of Democrats.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful about that.
Well, who is this? Do you know what I'm speaking of? Like I had posted it in
I had
the
heard that
public.
too. I didn't fact check.
Okay, Canwall Sybil. I thought.
And what you said may be entirely accurate. We just can't believe it without truth. What we know at this point is that a U.S. submarine made a first strike on a Iranian naval vessel. This was a military vessel. So they sank it in one hit. This was not an engagement. This was effectively a sneak attack. Now, whether if there was some kind of luring them, to me, it's very unlikely. A submarine doesn't need to do that. You're already a stealth ship running underwater.
So what was the? I mean, so what was the proposed catalyst for the sneak attack on the unarmed vehicle, or was it unarmed? Was it an unarmed vessel?
No, it's a military vessel.
Okay, it was a military Iranian vessel.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was Trump initiating the war without declaring war.
Oh,
Which,
okay. So he blew
you know,
it up to provoke some kind
To
of
be
response.
fair, and there's a lot of as I said, a lot of propaganda going around right now. So I do want to take the time to address some of it. Iranians are not innocent, not in any way. This is not. Well, I don't want to say it was provoked, because I've seen nothing to say it was really provoked. The Iranians have attacked America and Americans for years, going back to Jimmy Carter's presidency in 1979. It wasn't until 9/11 that any terrorist group was able to catch up to killing as many Americans as the Iranian-backed terrorist groups. And all throughout the Iraq War, Iran was helping any group that wanted to kill American soldiers. They are not good people. Again, it is a violent,
The regime.
dictatorial theocracy. It's everything that Donald Trump wishes he could be.
I would agree with. I would agree with that.
Jeez, yeah. Well, not
And,
theocratic. He doesn't.
yeah,
He's not really
so-
Christian.
They're not the good guys. If you see something online that, says Iranians are innocent, they never did anything wrong, right?
Seriously,
That's straight up
seen
propaganda, right?
Right.
That is
yeah.
ignoring.
I mean, I think I would
a
hope I
long
have more
history.
discretion. I think I have more discernment than that. I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm doing a little bit. Of
Not
research.
everybody does. I'm
Uh,
I'm seeing a lot of people sharing stuff on social media, and it's like, wait, do you really believe this?
I'm
Do
seeing
you really
that too,
believe that
actually.
Iran has never attacked Americans?
Yeah, I mean, they've been attacking Americans and funding anti-American terrorist activities for a while, but this is curious, right? So I will be curious because I'm reading something on Reuters, which is a highly reputable source, and
Yes.
it is saying it's saying like 3 Australians were on the submarine, and of course they're trying to distance themselves, saying that they didn't advocate for it or anything like that, but
Mhm.
they are going to be hopefully at least have a different either substantive or hopefully not contradictory, but
No, I think
the
that's
second take.
absolutely fair. Australian government is not going to want them to take any side. They don't want to get drawn into this conflict. And well, as soon as they're off the ship back in Australia, hopefully they give their side of events of what happened. I think that's very realistic, and we just have to be patient and wait for that.
Because I mean, we're also talking about the U.S. military that already committed war crimes,
Yes.
killing the drug traffickers, right? So it wouldn't be like I think it was a little bit of a straw man thing that Iran was supposed to be the good guy. They don't have to be the good guy. They're just even in war there is a decorum or
Yeah.
Even
Geneva Convention.
even without luring them, it is borderline a war crime. There's no declaration of war. We're not in open hostilities. This is,
That is interesting.
if you've had a fight with a guy in the past and you see him walking down the street and you sneak up behind him and stick a knife in his back, that's a crime, right? There doesn't have to be any luring involved to make it a crime.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I see stories over the top like that, and I haven't seen any evidence to back it up. It sounds like propaganda. Speaking of which, let's go into another event because everybody's talking about what we do know. There was a girls' school I'm not sure which city, possibly Tehran, but it doesn't even really matter. Immediately adjacent to an Iranian military base, a missile hit that school and killed around 100 or well over 100 school children, right? That is sticking to the facts right there. We know all of that happened. What we don't know, and there's a lot of question about it, is whose missile, right? There's some jumping to conclusions. It very well could have been Trump. The U.S. forces hit that base with multiple missiles. Again, the school is adjacent to the military base. Whether it was intentional or it was a convenient target, it could have happened. Also, these Iranian missiles have a nearly 50% failure rate. And there's a video, at least one video from this very base of a missile falling out of the sky and hitting the ground, and it could have been the missile that hit that school. So we don't know. Even if Trump was willing, we should not blame him for things that were not actually his fault. I believe there's plenty enough crimes of his in the Epstein files that we don't have to jump to conclusions on anything else. And we need to be careful of Iranian propaganda that wants to push this somewhere else. Again, this is a dictatorial, theocratic state. These are not good guys. They are perfectly willing to use any lie in order to get what they want. And something I'm starting to see pushed as well, and it obviously has its source in propaganda, is there are people who are calling to defund the U.S. military in entirety. This is not something that we should even consider. The world
What shouldn't we
is
consider? I
full
missed
of
that, sorry.
bad people. Right? And if we want to specifically defund Trump's war, Congress can do that, right? We do not have to fund the operations, but to defund the military, take our ability away to defend ourselves, not just ourselves, but many countries and innocent people around the world, that's insanity.
I agree with that.
And I do agree with this idea that there's probably going to have to be some kind of supplemental. Donald Trump just burned a ridiculous amount of ammunition, including like defensive Patriot missiles. He has no idea of the economics of warfare. He's wasting it like crazy. And some of this, particularly the defensive parts, have to be replaced, right? And I'll get into it. The big winner out of all of this is China, right? Right now, a Chinese invasion of Taiwan has never been as likely or probable as it is at this moment because Donald Trump initiated this war.
Is it because it's because we're like depleting precious resources on?
Yep. If China was to launch an invasion right now, we would be down like 1,000 Patriot missiles, and we have no time to replace them.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't think China's quite in a position.
I know they're purging their military. I don't know if you have any strong thoughts on why that's happening.
Oh, the way it always does in a communist regime, because people get power, they get into positions of skill, and then the people at the top become afraid of them. Right? It's one of the number one reasons why a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is likely to fail, because they're going to be terrified of anyone who could successfully run it. So, Stalin, one of the reasons he did so awful in World War II was that he
purged the
killed all of his
military.
generals who were extremely competent.
Yeah. True.
He was always too afraid that they would turn on him. He didn't trust anyone. Right? And that was more of a threat to him than even the Nazis who were killing all the Soviet citizenry. They didn't matter. Yeah, so this is very dangerous times. The U.S. needs to be the arsenal of democracy. We need to be the guarantor of peace and not a country that's just able to go off at war, right? So this is where I talked about that fine balance again. We've got to have enough military to keep the peace, not enough to launch so many wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked your thesis earlier when I heard you talking about it, about limiting the amount of bases for easy strike and easy war initiating activities, like pre-war activities. I think that's a good analysis.
Yeah, we keep a small force in these countries that we want to guarantee peace for. Maybe Iraq, because, we owe them some peace after the colossal mess that Bush made. And I was against that war. We never should have gone into Iraq. That's my personal opinion. Some people disagree and think it was justified. I don't think that everything that came out of it was bad. I'm glad Saddam Hussein is gone. I'm glad the Iraqi people are more free than they were before. But I don't think that war was justified or a wise idea. And I think we need to help keep the peace in Iraq till they're ready to keep it on their own. But that does not mean having a base that is large enough to launch an invasion of Iran from, right? It's a small force. If you attack it, then we can go to Congress and we can come back in force, right? Again, these small garrisons that help to keep the peace, not large standing armies in all parts of the world. Honestly, I would be. So let me present a radical idea. I think we could cut the U.S. Army, the Army specifically, by half, and reinvest more into the Navy and the Air Force to help keep the peace and discourage presidents from starting wars, because they wouldn't have the ground troops to invade anyone without going to Congress and getting a new authorization.
It's not a bad idea. I like that idea. And also probably would help us deter China. I know that that sea warfare is probably what we need. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Like people there. I guess the extreme of that issue would be all volunteer or no standing army, right? Like it would have to be all. So I think that's a nice median between that and where we are now.
Yeah, I don't even have a strong objection to no standing army, other than I don't think the world is quite ready for it because we've been doing it too long. The U.S. has been, for the last approximately 30 years, we've been the sole guarantor of world peace. Now we're part of the problem. And it will help if we back off from that role. And we allow responsible countries, not Russia, not China, right? But like France, UK, others who are capable, to step up a bit more and be guarantors of peace. France this week made a huge step towards that. In fact, they are expanding their nuclear weapons program. They're also no longer going to publish it, and they already have working on arrangements with Germany and Poland to station nuclear weapons there. That's not to start any hostilities. That's just basically as a threat and a warning to Russia not to start anything with Europe. And I think that's a good move. And now they're not dependent on the U.S. for protection.
All right.
Yeah.
So what would be like Europe has NATO. What could be created in the Middle East similarly with the not I don't want to say with the more moderate Arab countries, or is there something already there?
No, there's nothing. There's no one really there other than the U.S. And as we've seen, we're not particularly a great guarantor of peace. The Middle East is not a peaceful place. It's full of dictatorships, and sometimes some of the best you get are actually monarchies. Right? Jordan's one of the more peaceful places with a stable monarchy. It's it's definitely it's one of the furthest things from a bastion of liberalism.
How is Iraq doing? You don't hear about Iraq, like what happened after we left.
Yeah, you don't, and that's because they're actually doing a lot better. They're actually building things like brand new hospitals, brand new state-of-the-art hospitals, and investing in their country quite a bit. There's still some schisms there and some issues, but they're making it. They're on the right track, I would say. They're headed in a much better direction than they ever have been as a modern country.
That's good. I wasn't expecting that answer.
A long ways to go still, in my opinion, but they're on the path. And hopefully all this stuff that's going on with Iran and Israel doesn't kick them off of it. Another thing that I haven't seen much in the news, American news, that people aren't well aware of, is that it looks like Israel has kind of a small-scale invasion of southern Lebanon that's going on right now.
To deal with
they're going after Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is, probably kind of to be expected. They're fighting Iran, so Iran has their proxy army in Lebanon, which is more heavily armed than the Lebanese army. And they're going at it, and that's...
I thought Hezbollah was going to stay out of it these days, but it looks like they didn't. They never do.
No, Iran is calling in all their chips. Hezbollah does not exist without Iranian backing, so this is a fight for survival for them. So it's also going to be a fight for survival for the Houthis, who are Iranian backed. But with
what's
the U.S. in control of the Persian Gulf, I don't know how much the Iranians can do to help the Houthis out at this point.
What's the best case for Iran at this point, now that we're in the thick of it?
The best cases are not likely to happen. But, somehow there's a new government. If there was a revolution by the Iranians, Trump invited them to, but, they're not armed, right? You have a very violent regime in place that controls all the weapons, almost all the weapons in the country. The other small groups that are slightly armed, they're slightly armed. They're not in a position to take over the country, and them even trying would probably only fracture it. I'm thinking here specifically of the Kurds in the western part of the country. And, the Kurds of Iraq and Syria, they've been betrayed by Trump twice at this point.
That ain't
so,
the truth, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they certainly don't expect anything from him. They know he's not a person of his word, so don't expect them to get involved in his war.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, now is probably going to be the war for every American. I don't really know how we get out of this if Iran is not willing to stop fighting. It only takes one to start a war, but it takes two to make peace. And, as much as we really wish this didn't start, And one of the reasons it should have gone through Congress is because we have no partner for peace. We have
They will basically, I wouldn't say concede, but like Trump's not going to back down. There's no way that Trump's going to
But
settle
it's
for
not
any
just
precedent.
Trump. Iran's not going to back down. Even if the U.S. completely vacated the Middle East, I'm pretty sure they would continue on attacking some neighboring countries.
I will be right back. But please continue.
I mean, they've launched attacks on Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Azerbaijan, Cyprus. We intercepted an attack on Turkey. It's
Whatever happened to Ahmadinejad?
he's out of office. I think he just died.
Okay.
In fact, I think if I remember correctly, he got killed in one of the recent attacks.
Oh, that's interesting.
But he's no longer in any position of office. The way most people don't know, the way the Iranian government really works, so they have a supreme leader, the Ayatollah. He's a spiritual leader. He doesn't control anything day to day, but his word is kind of law, right? And underneath him is a guardian council, Shura Council. It's a bunch of Iranian clerics, kind of a conclave, and among other things, they replace the Ayatollah when one dies, so it's easy for them to do. And the other thing is they decide who can even run for office, right? There's no party primaries. Say, I want to be president, and the council evaluates you and decides if you can even run. So every race in Iran is pretty much rigged.
It's the illusion of democracy.
The illusion of democracy, the
in the
illusion of a
worst
republic.
possible way.
I've got to. We're gonna
Illusion
cut
of
in
a
like
republic.
2 more minutes, but feel free to wrap up.
And part of that is that, Iran is not a dictatorship. You can't just cut the head off of it. They can easily replace anyone at the top, and it's led by a cabal of fanatics, and they are unleashed right now. And everything that Trump is doing is kind of fueling this fanaticism. They are attacked, right? This is a call to defense. And for them, they're making excuses like, oh, some way or another, everyone else is participating and helping the U.S. So they're getting called into it. There's not an easy way to dial this down. They are not going to just quit tomorrow. We can't even just wave the white flag, right? They are not going to accept surrender. So we are stuck in
I mean,
this.
they are batshit crazy.
They are. They really are. We are going to have to figure out what level of fighting we are willing to sustain until we get better people in office. That's the reality.
Yeah.
I don't think this is ending in September. I think this is ending next January at best.
But also, like you're saying, office on their end as well.
Sorry,
If
repeat
the-
that?
Yeah, I mean, if the militants get out of power by either death or like one of the armies or whatever will have to like take over, but or that prince, the ex-prince comes back, right? Like they can shuffle up their people as well.
Yeah, but I see no way of that happening. You would have to have boots on the ground, which the U.S. should absolutely not do.
Mm.
It would be way worse than Iraq and Afghanistan. You would have to have boots on the ground, and there's just nobody there to do that. What I've said before is that, we should have been arming the revolutionaries who wanted to fight, but Trump is absolutely against that. He hasn't done
What
that.
if Russia goes in and tries to take over Iran as an administrative state like we did for Venezuela?
Russia's not capable of doing that while they're fighting in Ukraine,
Oof.
and they have no interest.
Hey, hey, maybe that's the 9D chess we've been waiting for.
Yep.
If you guys want to continue this conversation, you guys can join the Discord. I do have to cut stream though.
Okay,
Nope,
But,
we
uh,
will
I'm going
pick it up
to
next week.
I'm going to bounce, but it has been enjoyable.
Thanks. Awesome. All right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
all for listening in. We'll be back. I don't know when next week. Next week, probably Monday. And I'll talk to